Welcome to We Are Pius, the podcast where faith meets formation and our Thunderbolt community speaks from the heart. I'm Jeremy Eckler, Chief Administrative Officer for Pius X High School in Lincoln, Nebraska. And in each episode, we'll sit down with the people who make this place more than a school. They make it a faith-filled family. From educators and coaches to students, alumni, and leaders, we're exploring how Catholic education at Pius transforms lives, builds character, and shapes our future. Whether you're a parent, parishioner, or proud graduate, you're invited into the conversation. So let's get started. We're on the theme of why it matters, what makes Pius distinct and different. We're talking to guests who had just really rich Pius experiences and sort of embody the Pius thing. And today we're very honored because we have a legendary Hall of Famer, Coach Tim Aylward, with us. Coach Aylward, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about before this interview about what retired life is like, or semi-retired life is like. So you want to tell everybody, we're just starting football practices, right? But you're not out there anymore on the football field. What are your plans today?
Well, I'm going to go home, mow the yard, and then I've got some cleaning up to do at the house. We had grandkids over the weekend, so I'm still picking toys up and putting things away. So that'll be my day.
That's great. Well, you're the perfect interview for this theme because we're really talking about that distinctively Pius thing. And I think when people think about Coach, they just think of Pius. We just had the Hall of Fame alumni event. You helped sort of pseudo MC that, and we had great football stories, soccer stories, track stories, etc. But you did have a life before Pius, actually. So let's start a little bit with your background, your upbringing, some big influences on you, and then I'm assuming you did a little bit more than football growing up too, though.
Yeah, I was born, in Lincoln here, and went to what was then Holy Family that became Cathedral. Graduated, came to Pius and played football and wrestled while I was here and ran track a little bit. And sports were something that was always important to me. I just, growing up, I was always doing something. We used to go over to Southeast when I was in middle school, and the gym was open on Saturday mornings. They had open gyms. So we'd go over every Saturday, play basketball. We knew there were different places that were open, like I don't know if I can say this, the Jewish synagogue over there on Sheridan Boulevard on Saturday afternoons after their services. You could sneak in the back door, and they had a basketball hoop in their community room, so you could shoot baskets there.
Is that the synagogue on Sheridan?
Yeah, until you got kicked out. And then, Westminster, you go down there sometimes after school. But it was just one of those things that, just baseball in the summer and basketball in the winter, football, and just, whatever sport was in the season, that's kind of what we were doing, and really enjoyed it. And of course, the guys that I was in school with, everybody was involved and stuff. And so, that was always an important thing to me. And of course, at Pius, same thing. I got involved and in sports and played football, wrestled, like I said. And of course, my dad passed away when I was 13. So coaches became a big part of my life just because of that influence that I needed. And so Coach Aldrich, meant a lot to me. And then, of course, I went to school out at UNK, or in my day, it was Kearney State. Played football out there. And the coaches out there were very, very instrumental. Coach Terry Renner, who was the defensive coordinator, and Claire Boroff, who became the head coach. And those two guys really just kind of shaped me. And I ended up coaching freshmen. What had been my first semester of my fifth year, so because I had a student teach. And so I was coaching freshmen and student teaching that semester, and had made up my mind that that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to coach. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a teacher, but I knew I wanted to be a coach. But unfortunately, the teach part came with it. And I was offered a position at Kearney High School the next school year, and so I accepted that. I was a PE teacher, assistant football, assistant track. And I was there for 8 years, and just really, when I first started, I bought a new car. I said to myself, I'm going to work for 3 years, pay off this car, and I'm going to go coach college football. That was what I wanted to do. And I just kind of, life happened, and I fell in love with just the high school thing and being around kids and working there and teaching and the whole thing. And so like I said, I was there for 8 years, and I accepted a head coaching position, head football and head track coaching position at Cozad High School. And so I was there for 3 years. I was there for 1982, 83, 84. And then in the spring of 1984, Coach Aldrich passed away, and a lot of things happened, and I just decided I'd apply for the position. I wasn't going to, and I told my wife, no, I'm going to stay in COSAD. The previous fall, we were turning the program, and we went over. And we found every way possible to lose games. Last game of the year, I think we were playing Superior, and we were ahead, and fourth down, and snapped the ball on a punt, and the ball went right through the punter's hands in the end zone for a safety, and we lost the game 14-13.
Still remember these things, right?
So, it's one of those things that, but, I was bound and determined I was going to turn it. And then I finally, just on a whim decided, all right, I'm going to put my name in at Pius to see what happens. And
what was that like, when Coach Aldrich died? I mean, we hear about him and what a legend he was and all the influence he had. Was his, I guess just for a little bit of history lesson, was his passing sudden? Was he sick? Do you remember?
It was one of those things where he just went to bed one night and didn't wake up, had a heart attack in the middle of the night. And his son, Mike, of course, was there with him, and Mike just went into his room, and he wasn't up yet, and shook him, and just, unresponsive.
Wow. So how'd you get that news?
Just word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. It traveled state pretty quick.
Yeah,
this is obviously before cell phones and social media, but that sort of thing reverberate for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And he had a pretty big influence. I mean, I didn't know about your father's passing. Yeah. Was that a sudden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, at 42 years old, had a heart attack, passed away. And I was the second oldest of 8 children, so I kind of took over a lot of things. And
yes, you did. Took on a lot of responsibility early. And so for Coach Aldrich, you talked about Coach Aldrich being sort of one of the father figures to you. Any stories, any memories there?
Just the thing, and again, I relate this and start to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people, identify, but I can remember sitting in the locker room, and Coach Aldrich had his standard speeches about, being responsible, being an adult, being, you can't run away from your problems and hide from life, that you have to face things and work on your problems and deal with things and that. And that was something that kind of a theme that he constantly had. And I can remember looking around the locker room at times. And of course, we would all sit there and kind of look at each other, and at times almost, I don't want to say snicker, but, just kind of smile at each other. And yet, to a person, you talk to your friends, and I don't know anybody that wouldn't give anything to just be back in that locker room one more time and hear that message.
Yeah.
That, hey, life's not easy. You got to face it. You got to fight,
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's maybe one of these things that's, we talked about the theme being this distinctive Pius, what makes Pius distinct. And one of the things I do see from our coaches, and it's probably that first impact moment with Coach Aldrich, is I think our coaches are really committed to forming the whole person and forming really strong young men, strong young women in a pretty tough culture for sure. And I know a lot of people listening to this will remember speeches by you. I do, as a former player. And yeah, I would give anything to be back on one knee and hearing those things again. And they're constant reminders now, because things do still get tough, but it's funny that there's a voice in your head from when you're 16 years old that reminded you, like, it's worth the struggle.
Yeah. I know a couple times at Hall of Fame in particular, I've introduced coaches, and that's one thing I've said as an introduction, and most people, and people we have inducted have been outstanding, coaches and stuff. But, I think one thing that the message that I always try to relay is everybody, I hope, I as a player had coaches who said things to me that impacted me in a great way. And I just hope that every person that's involved in athletics activities of some kind has that chance to have that person that, touches them in some way. And for me, particularly when I was in college, Coach Terry Renner, who was a tremendous influence on my life. But I can still remember one day at practice, just, it was in the spring, and so things are kind of a little more laid back, but I made a half-hearted effort on a play, and I was just laying there, and I was coming back. I was a returning starter, and I was a defensive captain and everything, and he just walked up to me and said, "I expect better from you." And that was just one of those things that just, it hit me.
Yeah. My son's playing tackle football for the first time. My son's with this little Junior Bolts program. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing some of those same messages from those youth coaches to the 12-year-olds. If you're going to be on this Pius field with this Pius logo, we expect your best, mm-hmm. because there are a lot of guys before you who gave their best. And I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of tradition.
Yeah.
And I look at my little guys, I'm like, that feels like a lot, but you know what?
Yeah.
They love it,
yeah.
and they're answering to it,
yeah.
And I guess this is also a chance just to thank you for keeping that message alive. I know it meant a lot to me, and a lot to the people listening. So back to the timeline here. So you're in Cozad, you mm-hmm. want to turn it around, mm-hmm. everything, finding ways to lose games, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You come for this interview. Was this like, this is the Pius job's the one I want, or how'd the interview happen? And then upon getting the job, were you like, oh my gosh, these are big shoes?
Yeah, it was all of that. I called on Friday. They said, well, we're making our decision tomorrow, so if you'll have to come in the morning. So I drove in for Saturday morning interview. Father Bart called me, I think, Tuesday the following week and offered me the position. And of course, it was one of those things that, with my wife and her job and just a lot of things, we had to find jobs and place to live and just a lot of things all, in a hurry. And so, and that summer, I was taking a summer school course and at Kearney and I was coaching the Western Nebraska All-Star game in Scotts Bluff, which is in last weekend in July. So I coached that game, drove to Cozad, loaded a U-Haul, drove to Kearney, took a test, and then came to Lincoln and mm-hmm. unpacked. So
wow, whirlwind.
Just a lot of things going on. Yeah.
At what point did it hit you that the responsibility you were taking on here? You knew the program, but
and I think I came in the first year, and I told a lot of people this that my theme. People ask me a lot, what's your and I says I just don't want to screw it up. I says they got a good thing going here. I just don't want to screw it up. I just want to keep it going.
Yeah.
And and again, there's a lot of learning, on my side, and of course with players, and fortunately I did a lot of the same things that Coach Aldrich did from an offensive defensive mm-hmm. standpoint. So there wasn't a huge transition from that standpoint. And a couple of coaches that stayed over, Mike Hughes for one, that helped, with that transition. That was a big help. And I was told more than once that, hey, you're not Coach Aldrich. And I kept saying, I'm not trying to be Coach Aldrich. I'm trying to be me. And, that was the whole thing is I wasn't trying to be him. I wasn't trying to, I knew that I had, taken that on, but I had to be myself. And I couldn't, so I tried not to be him, but be me.
Yeah. And we just put Mike Hughes in the Hall of Fame, which I think is was just a beautiful moment because he was kind of my impression is he was a grinder. He was behind the scenes, mm-hmm. consistent, stabilizing force. And those guys and those assistants and those community members are just as important as the person up front, I think.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
You've had great assistants over the years, too.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. Yeah.
Very fortunate, yeah. So how old are you at this point?
73. I'll be 74 in about 2 weeks.
How old were you when you took the job?
33.
33.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so let's talk about now you're at Pius. We're building this program or sustaining the mm-hmm. excellence. I was not a very good football player. I was a long snapper though. Mm-hmm. And I tell joking stories all the time about what a good long snapper I was. So my son Oliver now thinks that's the best position on the field. And the first day of Junior Bolts, who wants to be a quarterback, who wants to be a running back, who wants to be a tight end, and my little guy's the only one left. And what do you want to be? And he says he wants to be a long snapper. So
hey,
but you've coached some amazing players, mm-hmm. some amazing. Who are some of the guys? What are some of the games? What are some of the memories that stick out over the years? Maybe some of those best seasons where they ended in a championship or not.
Yeah, there's so many. 1985, of course, my first season. I think we finished 4-5, and the guys, really responded well and played well. In '86, we kind of turned things a little bit. I think we went out to Grand Island Northwest and beat them the first time they'd been beaten on their field for quite a while. So, then '87 we got to playoffs, and, you know, I had a personal family tragedy that year. And so the guys really kind of helped, you know, get things going and keep things going for us, you know, while I was dealing with that. And then we ended up going to playoffs, got all the way to state semifinals. So
yeah,
had a tremendous year. And then after that, things just kind of built. And then, of course, 95 was state championship team, a lot of good people there. And 96, you know, we lost in the semifinals. And 97 and 98, of course, we won state championships. And and you know, there's so many teams and so many players, it'd be hard to start naming them. And I've got so many. I think, you know, maybe one that stands out a lot is I believe it was the 2008 team, where we made it all the way to the state semifinals that year, and we didn't have one player, well, maybe, that went and played big time college football. We had a couple guys that played at Wesleyan maybe, but I mean, it was just a bunch of guys that just really came together and trusted each other and played for each other. And, you know, and I know at the end of the season, I told him, I said, you know, Abraham Lincoln had the saying of, I'm a success today because I didn't want to let my friends down.
Yeah.
And that was that team's theme all season long. They played for each other, and just a great, you know, group of guys. Like, says, there wasn't one guy, we didn't have one guy that could go play big time college football, not a one. But they just, you know, really formed a team. And of course, one of the guys, John Leszewski, had passed away the previous spring, and I think that really bonded them. You know, they wanted to do things to kind of honor him, and they really did. They did a great job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are I can relate on a couple levels. Coached mostly baseball, softball, but having gotten to the college level, you realize how much energy and spirit and tradition are at a place like Pius. You know, when you're playing out at a field and there's 15 people there for a small college game versus everyone committed to coming out for a Pius event. And then, I mean, I think back on my own coaching career, not nearly as decorated or storied as you, but I'll never forget the first JV softball team I coached here, which we were basically pulling kids who'd gotten cut from volleyball to put a softball group together. And we won 12 games and we lost 10, and we partied like we'd won the state championship because those girls, they cared for each other and they put the Pius thing and each other first. I just think that is such a valuable lesson today, especially in an age where you sit in your room and you be on your cell phone, or you could dink around, but you decide to put in the hard work, you decide to commit, you decide to stay late, get up early, and do it for other people. I just think that's a huge thing.
You know, that was something I used to always talk to players about, and that was, you know, the whole idea of don't just be involved, be committed. You know, and the big difference, like I always said, and this was a Lou Holtz story, but he says it's kind of like bacon and eggs. He says the chicken's involved, but the pig, he's committed. You know, and that's what you want, is you want them to fully commit themselves. And again, that to me, you know, with sports, and I've said this so many times, but high school sports are about learning a lot of lessons, not just the, you know, how to catch the ball, run, you know, and all this stuff, but, you know, I'm going to learn what it means to really be committed and to put everything I've got into something. And even if I don't succeed, you know, I'm still going to put myself into it and give my all to something besides just myself. Yeah.
So we're kind of at the point now where in your career, the coaching, we're up to 2008, you're starting to think about what's next and stepping away from coaching. What went into that decision, and what went into the athletic direction?
Coach O'Boyle was going to retire at that point, 2009 school year. And so I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, but I took applied for it, and then was given that athletic director's job with the caveat, if you will. I wanted to keep coaching football because my youngest son, Jeff, was still involved. So I said, I want to coach him through, and then I'll be done. So he played for, I think 2011 was his senior season. And I just decided I'm still enjoying it. I want to keep going. So I kept coaching. And again, it was probably, I had to be nuts at the time when I look back at the hours I was putting in coaching and then trying to do the athletic director's job and everything else. But as I kept going and got deeper into it, I really enjoyed being the athletic director and being in that position. So finally in 2015, I decided I was going to step away from football and all the coaching and just be strictly an athletic director. And so from 2015 to 2020, I was just solely that person. But and I look back and says, gosh, I reached a point, I think, where I didn't feel like I was doing justice to both positions. So I thought, I've got to do one and not both. So,
yeah. And from that activities director perch and as a coach, one of the things we're really working on is the way we communicate with parents and the way families communicate, but especially athletes with their coaches. Do you have some advice for people listening, for parents of athletes, about your kid, the struggle, playing time, communication? I mean, you've been in a lot of meetings on those topics. So.
Yeah, I think, that's a message I always, had at parent meetings was, really encourage your son or your daughter to go talk to the coach. And it's not easy. And that was the other side of that coin too, is when I talked to coaches, I said, you have to be approachable. You're not the drill sergeant in the Marine Corps here. You have to be approachable. Now, that doesn't mean that, just because they came and talked to you, that all of a sudden, that's the magic thing that turns everything around. No, but, let them know, okay, get better at this, this, and this, or whatever it is, But I think it's got to start there. And I know there's mom and dads that are, they mean well, but, they're not doing their son or daughter a service by, I'm going to go talk to that coach. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Well, and I've had a lot of meetings under a lot of different disguises, if you will, and you peel back the layers and it's playing time, and I think that's the thing is, and I know people mean well and people have invested a lot and, they want their son or daughter to do well. And that's, I understand, I get that, but by the same token, it's got to be their experience. And I think sometimes they do them a disservice by not allowing them to have, the good or the bad and everything else that comes with it and, grow from that.
Yeah. So now it sounds like over 40 years in the coaching, admin, teaching role here at Pius, and then a high school career here as well as an athlete. We see, we see this whole career, and we're excited to see around this year as well in some new capacities, helping us out at the stadium and broadcasting and that sort of stuff. What makes Pius so special? What keeps drawing Coach back, kept him here? Why Pius?
I think the big thing for me was, and again, something I used to say a lot is, we got great kids. We had great kids. Kids that are willing to work, that are willing to help each other. They're willing to, invest themselves and they want to do well. And that, when I first came here, and I had been at Kearney High, I'd been at COSAD, and both programs were decent, but again, lacking that kind of winning, if you will, winning tradition. And that's one of the first things that when I came here, everybody expected to win. I mean, that's something I had to learn. They just expected to win. And I think that was the thing is they expect to do well, and I think that's the thing with Pius. And the other thing too, of course, is the support, the families. And I'll bet of all the families and people and parents that I dealt with, I would say that 99% of them were very positive and just great people to work with and be associated with.
Yeah, that's what makes the Pius community so special. Everyone understands the mission, wants to stay on the mission. That's really good stuff. Anything else you'd like to to share about your Pius career and what makes Pius different before we get to our little lightning round?
Yeah. No, I think that it's just been, like I said, it's been a wonderful place to work and that for me, and I just, one of those things where I, came in right time, right place, and was able to have success, and it was just, great. And for me and my family, and my kids grew up here, and I'd come up in the summer for weightlifting, and my kids would play in the weight room, and to them, the weight machine was a jungle gym. And, that's just kind of how they grew up, and that was how it was. And, but, it was just, for me, it was just the right thing.
Yeah, and you're a cathedral parishioner now, right? So you're back, kind of back where you started, not too far from where you probably grew up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It is a special place here at Pius and cathedral for that matter. As I'm a current cathedral parishioner as well. So just the history there with the cathedral and Pius is amazing. So let's dive into this lightning round then. These are just quick hitter questions. There's no real rules here. Just share some feedback and get to learn a little bit more about you. So the first question is, who's your favorite saint right now? Who are you connecting with, Coach?
I think I've always kind of had a thing, St. Paul, just because you look at his history, and he's one of these guys that, I mean, maybe at one point he might have been one of the worst of the worst, and yet, he, struck by a bolt of lightning, if you will, and just his life completely turned around. And I think the second part too is, as you read some of the stuff that he writes, he talks a lot about, okay, run the good race, fight the good fight, whatever. Maybe at one point he might have been an athlete. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. I think that's our first St. Paul, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Do you have a favorite Bible verse, something that you lean into?
Well, that would have to be, again, St. Paul, that 2 Timothy, I fought the good fight, run the good race. And
very good. Yeah.
So.
Good. This is one of my favorite questions. It gives us a chance to add your prayer intentions to our prayers here as a Pius community. Who or what are you praying for right now?
Oh, you're always praying for your family and your children and their families and grandkids, and hoping everything goes well. And 3 of the 5 started kindergarten this year.
Oh, wow. Yes.
That's another big thing. You hope everything goes well for them and that. And of course, always, just, that would probably be.
Yeah. Very good.
Something, yeah.
Who's your hero?
Oh, gosh. I think, I've had a lot of people in my life that have shown me a lot of good things. And of course, I maybe have to go back to my mom, just because of the circumstances, to be a single mother of 8 children. Yeah. I think she was 38 or 39.
And you said you were the second oldest, so there's a lot of little ones coming up. Yeah.
And, I watched her as she faced the adversity, and it was one of those things that giving up was not an option.
Yeah.
And so, every day she'd get up and put one foot in front of the other and just did what she had to do to make a life for us. And every night she went, didn't matter what kind of day it was, she knelt down, at her bed and prayed. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. We talked about resilience and overcoming and sort of this idea of toughness, but I don't know that I've ever heard a story of a tougher woman than your mom. That's incredible. Besides the things you've shared here today, what is one other thing you'd want the Thunderbolt community to know about you?
Oh, I think it's one of those things that I know, a message that I've always had for kids and that, going to college, and I know that was something we do at retreat with seniors, is talk about, okay, going to college and everything. The message I always had was, don't, whatever is going on in your life, and no matter how bad you think your moral compass is strayed, don't quit going to Mass. No matter what. I mean, a lot of times we think, okay, it's only for the holy people, and yet it's not. It's for the people that need it the most. And a lot of times, like I say, regardless of what direction your moral compass is going, don't stop going to Mass.
Nice. It's a great message. Last one's a little bit of a prompt. The best part about being a Thunderbolt is?
I think, just school spirit and enthusiasm, and just the fact that so many people care. And of course, obviously from a background of religion and faith and everything else, getting to use those elements every day, I think is just huge.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I think we all learned a little bit more about you, and I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about why Pius is different. I mean, you've committed so much of your life, and your family sacrificed so much for it as well, but just green and gold through and through, and appreciate all your efforts. I think I speak for thousands of players and coaches and colleagues. Just appreciation for everything you've done, and for taking the time today, Coach. So thank you. Thanks for joining us on We Are Pius. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with someone who loves Pius and Catholic education as much as we do. We are blessed to be Bolts, and until next time, do your best to restore all things in Christ.